All right, this is a discussion I really wanted to have. As you can see, I put a question mark after the word rebuild. It's fascinating because on one hand, you'll have people like Craig Conroy at the end of season interviews, and honestly, the Flames organization really as a whole, for as long as I've followed them, over 20 years, they've always been reluctant to use the word rebuild. It's part of the reason they've never had a top 3 pick ever. So some people say even with all the trades you've made, as long as you've got those contracts of Kadri, Huberdeau, Coleman, Weegar, Anderson, for some people, as long as you have them on your roster, it's not a true tear-down rebuild. But for people who do look at it as a rebuild, like you look at the names Craig Conroy's had to trade since becoming Flames GM last year, so many core, at the very least important players, that now, just a year later, only 6 players remain from that 2022-23 team. And in bulk, the return for those players has mostly been draft picks, prospects, and young players. It's the most rebuildy I've seen this team look since 2013 when Jerome McGinley, Jay Bouwmeester, Alex Tanguay, Mika Kiprusoff nixed a trade to Toronto but ended up retiring at the end of the year anyways. So even just going to 2022 where we talk about Gaudreau and Tkachuk, like this team has taken it down to the studs. Like it's completely different now. And I know you shouldn't put a lot of stock in a development camps, that makes sense, but the stockpiling of youth that Craig Conroy's banking the future of this franchise on, it's starting to look really, really promising. Now, of course, time will tell how many of these players will actually pan out at the NHL level. That's why I don't want to put too much stock into the development camp. But my impression, as well as quite a few other people, was that Craig Conroy had a sparkling 2024 draft. It seems as though at the very least he's given the franchise a good chance of building something sustainably good in the future. And that's quite refreshing for many of the Flames teams of old, where it was like, okay, the window isn't as open as it should be right now. Let's try to mishmash a bunch of things together in free agency and trade and just hope and pray we can go on a good run here. And that Parekh pick really seems to have been uplifting for the fan base. It reminds me of once again in 2013 at the draft when Sean Monahan was taken. He was like the first face of the new era of Flames hockey after Iginla. I know Tkachuk and Gaudreau ended up being the biggest stars, but before we'd seen those two, this guy was taken 6th overall. You could tell he was super pumped to be a Flame. He scored 22 goals as a rookie 19-year-old, which was impressive. This was back before everyone, including the popcorn guy in the 5th row, was getting 100 points in a season. The level of offense we're getting nowadays is crazy, but I love it. But Monahan just kind of represented the future of the franchise and how bright it could be, and I kind of get that same vibe from Parekh. So far, I think this rebuild, reset, whatever you want to call it, I think it's going really well. Of course, you'd love a top 3 pick to really kick it into high gear, but after quite a bit of heartbreak and turnover and chaos for Flames fans here, I'd say things are looking up right now. Look, I'm really not expecting much at all from the Flames this season, but there still are quite a few things that I'm going to be watching intently that definitely fascinate me for the future. Like for one, how big of a step can Zary, Coronado, Peltier take this upcoming season? How does Sharangovich look after signing that big long-term deal? How's the Mantha Huberdeau experiment going to go? How's Dustin Wolf going to play this year now that there's no safety net of Markstrom? Jake Bean in his introductory press conference raved about how deeply connected he is to the Flames franchise and how much he's loved it since he was a kid. Can that translate to him being a really good top 4 defenseman going forward for the team? Because he's only 26. Like he could end up being part of the long-term mix here. And there's definitely some other storylines to keep an eye on as well. So while I don't think we're going to see a 2015 Cardiac Kids Calgary Flames here, I also don't think this is going to be a boring one. But now I pass it on to you, Flames fans and hockey fans in general. How do you think the rebuild or reset, whatever you want to call it, how do you think that's gone so far since Conroy's taken the job on? And what are you most interested to see from this team this upcoming season? If you want more Flames content, you know what to do. Like the video, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. You're awesome.